Hey everybody, James again. Thanks for joining me. Today's videos will be a little bit different. Well, I should probably say a lot different. Oh, say hi, Dewey Dog. This is my buddy Dewey. He's a little shy. Can you say hi? Can you say hi? I've posted some videos on YouTube. Well, not really on YouTube, but sorry, on Instagram. Just quick little clips of some waterproofer that I made. You know, that's beeswax based, and it's a really quick and easy thing to do. And I've gotten actually a good handful of messages asking me how I do it. While it is easy to do, it's a little too much to type. So I figured I'd just do a really quick how-to. I want to get some done actually, so I can take it with me on my trip on Friday. So today being Monday, I want to get it done real quick and show you guys how I do it. I did find the recipe on YouTube. I'll see if I can find the original, video that I watched, and so I can give that individual, credit for it. But so far, like searches on Google or YouTube, I've turned up pretty much the same recipe. But all right, I'm gonna take it outside because it can get a little dangerous. So I'll take it outside so we don't have to worry about any fumes or anything. Okay, so here's what we've got. It's pretty easy. You don't need a whole lot of stuff. I use the beeswax pellets. I don't know if you can get a good look at them. It's 100% beeswax, and they're in small little pellets, so it melts. I find that it melts a lot easier than getting one of the bricks, and you have to break it into chunks, and it takes a little bit longer. Then you pick up some regular old turpentine and some boiled linseed oil. Whatever container you're going to put it in, you need to make sure it's all going to fit. Basically, the ratio is really easy. It's a 2 to 1 to 1 ratio. So you're going to do 2 parts beeswax and then 1 part of each of these. So I've already figured out ahead of time that 4 of these little mason jars fit into my 1 quart paint can. You can also buy at the hardware store. These usually come from any of the craft store. I go to Hobby Lobby for mine. So basically, you melt a predetermined amount of the beeswax, in which case, or in this case rather for me, it will be one of these. 2 of these. And then you add in 1 part of each of these and stir it up and let it cool, and that's basically it. So I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to turn my little hot plate on. I always just put it on the lowest setting possible. I haven't found that I need to turn it up very warm at all. I do use an electric one because, you watch a lot of the tutorials and they'll say, oh, keep the wax and the chemicals away from an open flame, but they're using a small propane burner. So I just choose to use the little electric hot plate. I also do my work in a little. It's designed for making candles. It's it's a metal cup for melting wax. So no big deal there. I also don't use it for anything else. Once I do this, due to the fact that I do put some turpentine and linseed oil in it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I turn it on so it starts to warm up a little bit. Then I'm going to measure out my 2 parts beeswax into my container, as I said. I go a little bit light on them because once they melt, it'll expand on you and then won't fit in your container. And the last thing you want is to end up with a hot mixture and no place to put it. So I put my beeswax pellets in. And I use, anything metal really. It doesn't have to be metal to stir it around. I use this, a little eye bolt I just quickly grab on the way out of my garage. So the candle tins work really well for melting because they're so thin. It transfers the heat pretty quickly. So you put the 2 parts beeswax in and we get that started. Once that turns to liquid, we'll add in the others.
Alright everybody, the wax is melted. You can hear some popping because there was a little bit of moisture in there. So just be careful if that happens while you're looking over the top of it. I'm going to go ahead and add the linseed oil next. So 1 part of linseed oil to match the 2 parts that you put in of the wax. Just be careful with the wax, obviously it is very hot and it does retain heat extremely well. Alright, so we got the moisture out of there, so that's good. Especially before we add the oil in. Alright, so we have our linseed oil measured out. I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the heat. Let it cool for a sec. And then pour the linseed oil in. I'm going to let it cool just for a second. Kind of congeals in there. I'm going to agitate it a good bit, make sure it mixes well. You can break up the little bits that stick together. Just get it good and mixed. Don't be afraid to take it off the heat. The wax, like I said, retains the heat for quite some time. Now that it's done, I'm going to go ahead and put it back on the burner. Let it warm up again. And I don't think anything of drying stuff off on my leather gloves. Or wiping it off, rather. Now I'm going to go ahead and measure out the turpentine. This is the stinky part. This is why we do it outside. So it's 1 part of this, 1 part of the linseed oil, and 2 parts beeswax. So now that's warmed up a little bit again, I'll go ahead and I'll add the turpentine. A few beeswax bits left over in there I don't want to get out. Alright, let's get that warm again. Let's give it a good stir. Alright, I'm going to let this warm back up for a minute. I'll check back in with you, and then we'll put it in our containers. Okay everybody, it's pretty well warmed up and blended now. I turned the burner off and moved it off to the side a little bit. Just getting the container ready that I'm going to store it in. There's a little bit of moisture in there. I want to make sure I get it out. I want to pour hot oil into a container that's got water in it, so bad things happen. So, like I said, I just have these, aluminum 1 quart paint cans from Lowe's. They do have the liner in them. I wish that they didn't, but the wax is warm, but I'm not applying the heat to these, so it should be okay. Just keep that in mind though if you ever plan on putting one of these cans right on the burner, which some folks do. I stay away from it because of the liner. So just set your can down. I always have gloves on, especially leather ones, and just in case. Because after all, it is hot melted wax. So we're just going to pour it into our container. And you can see it's cold out here, which is the reason for a majority of the fumes. I should say they're not actually fumes, but it does get quite stinky. So that's it everybody. Now we just let it cool. Take our mixture, set it off to the side, let it cool, and it'll solidify, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, I took you off the mount there folks. So there you have it. we're all set. It's done. It's cooling. I have this nice quart full of this waterproofing, agent, substance, whatever you'd like to call it. Once it starts to cool, it'll start to thicken up. You can see the little guys already are starting to get a waxy skin on the top of them. It does take quite some time to cool, especially, and I'm not this large, so I like to leave it outside, especially when it's cold. You do kind of want to let it air out too before you put the lid on it, because that turpentine does make it stinky for a good bit. So I'll leave it outside to cool and air out, and eventually I believe it does evaporate to the point where you don't really smell it a ton. Once it does cool, it does turn into like a wax that I now have to scrape off my table. Hopefully I don't get in trouble. But again, 2 parts beeswax, 1 part turpentine, and 1 part boiled linseed oil. Melt the wax. Once it's melted and warm, add the 1 part boiled linseed oil. If you put the turpentine in first, once you throw the linseed oil into it, it gets pretty congealed up, and I mean, you can break it up with more heat, but it's just a little bit easier to do that. So melt the wax, add the linseed oil, bring it back up to temp, and then lastly add the turpentine in. Let it mix a little bit. You can turn off the heat, then you have plenty of time to transfer it to a container. Like I said, I won't use that candle tin really for anything else. I'm going to be making some lip balm and stuff like that for the outdoors with the rest of this beeswax. But because I'm not using turpentine or anything like that, I'm going to be able to do it inside. Also, I use a clamp to hold my little outlet to the table, because the last thing you want to happen is for your burner with your jug of hot wax to slide off the table. It's wasteful and pretty dangerous. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean this mess up. I'm going to let it cool, and then I'm going to show you guys what it looks like when it's done and how to apply it to gloves. You can use it on, canvas, cotton, all sorts of things. All right, I'll talk to you soon. So it's really simple. Just take a cloth. I'm using an old Holy sock that my dog got a hold of. So you just take an old cloth, get you some wax. Just kind of smoothing out the top of the can, just because, I have OCD. You wouldn't be able to tell by the state of my garage, though. So you just get you some wax on a rag and start working it in there. You don't have to go crazy. Just make sure you put a decent amount. Let it get in the threads. These boots are already waterproof, but they need to be taken care of. The leather will dry out, and you'll lose some protection. So you just go ahead and rub the wax in. I like it because they get scuffed up, and the wax kind of helps fill the scuffs, builds up in there and kind of fills them up, and can definitely bring new life to old equipment with this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and get these all waxed up. All right, here they are. We're all waxed up. Normally you'd go a little more in depth, remove your laces and wax your tongue, and even wax the laces if you wanted to. I don't wear these that often. I don't hike in them. I just kind of wear them if I'm doing, I don't want to say yard work, but anytime I'm outside in the snow, I'll wear them. But like I said, I won't go for a hike in these. Maybe if I do some bushcraft, then I wear them, but they're a little bit heavier and low tech compared to the hikers that I have, so they're not insulated, but they are pretty nice, and they're breaking in. They just take a long time, so they're so dang heavy. But they're all waxed up. Next step is hit it with some heat. You don't have to go crazy with this step. It does help the wax to set in, but just have a basic Harbor Freight heat gun. You should see color change. You could even do it on the low setting, but you just hit it with the heat. It's going to take a few seconds because it's kind of cold in here. You might not be able to see the color change, but you can definitely smell it. If you do it on a lighter fabric, you'll see it. It kind of heats, gets a little glossy. You might be able to pick it up on there. It heats, gets a little glossy, and then soaks in, especially on the laces and stitching. So just kind of go over it and heat it up real quick and let it all soak in. Not really sure if you guys can see that all that well, but especially around the toe, the wax has set in quite a bit from the heat, and these will be quite waterproof now. But so I'll go ahead and heat the other boot, and we'll be all set. I might even apply it to my gloves. It's pretty fantastic stuff. You can apply it to anything really, any cloth, canvas, denim, you name it. You can kind of see the difference in color here. The lighting's really poor in my garage, and so I'm having a hard time, but the wax soaks in and is not nearly as waxy to the touch. Over here you can still feel quite a difference, so that's why the heat's important. Okay everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get this video uploaded. I hope that it helped. It's pretty inexpensive. I've got that whole quart can full of waterproofer and 2 smaller tins that I'll pack into my possibles, equipment. So I'll have that. I also have quite a bit of material left over, probably about half of those cans and maybe only about a quarter of the beeswax. That'll allow me to either make some more or maybe get into making some other stuff. I'd like to, maybe make some balm or some lotion with it for, healing cracked hands, because that happens to me often when I'm outdoors. So, but that's another deal for another day. Apologize again for the poor lighting. I am working on stepping up the equipment and editing, as you can see here. I've upgraded the machine I'm working on. Excuse the mess. We've upgraded the camera, so things should get better for us in terms of video. So just stick with me and follow along as I kind of hope to improve on all the video aspect of it and also the outdoors aspect of it. So don't forget,
if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing more videos like this. I'm working on right now doing an aluminum grill, actually a packable aluminum grill that I can bring with me. Subscribe to the channel, check out my Instagram. All that stuff's here on the YouTube channel. So we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.